All right. And for the 261st time, we are live. It's Thursday night, March 8th, 2016. It's another episode of Gun News Weekly, 261 times in a row. Here we go. Ross is here. What's up, Ross?
What's happening, brother? Glad to be here on a Thursday night. Thank you to everybody who's joining us in the chat over on the YouTube channel. Check it out on KevinTheTackDaddy.com. Or Kevin the Chat Tack Daddy YouTube channel. Sorry.
The Chat Daddy?
The Chat Daddy?
Did I just say that?
I don't know.
That's going to stick, by the way.
No. What's up, Brian?
That is your new nickname, Kevin.
All right,
How
great.
you guys doing?
We're doing good, man. Good to see you as always. Clint's joining us, special guest. He's been here before. What's going on, dude?
I know a little bit about what's going on. We'll talk about that later.
I know a little thing or two. Clover Tack's in the house. What's up, Clover?
Good evening, gentlemen. Hello, chat. Good to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Got it. Googler's here. What's up? He's off location.
Yep.
Don't hit that button. Don't reveal.
We all want to see.
No, we're good.
Casey's in the house. What's up, Casey?
Not much, fellas. Hope everybody's good.
You might have to share that story at the end of the show if there's time.
They're a customer, so
Oh, never mind.
yeah.
Never mind. Ghost Tactical's here as well. What's up, Trey?
What's up, Chat Daddy? Are you doing all right? Thanks for having me.
Chat Daddy.
As well as the
My
Chat
bad,
Daddy.
bro.
I know you guys are terrible. Big shout out to Lanzang Tactical. Make sure you check them out. We got some big news coming up about them very soon. They and many of our friends will be joining us at the Big 3 event that's coming up later this month as well.
They're going to be there?
Maybe.
Cool.
Maybe.
I haven't seen them for a while. I want
Yes.
to catch up.
And this is also tonight. We're brought to you thanks to my tooth extraction yesterday by Jello. See, I thought Schwell was going to be here and I'd be able to talk about this creamy middle part. That's another inside joke that we'll get to.
That's wrong.
It is wrong, right? I can't get the chat up. I guess Ross, you got the chat on.
I got it. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, let's get
Clover's
into it.
over there as well.
Right on. A couple stories related to the shooting of Parkland, and then we got some other stories to talk about, including the latest legislation that looks like it's going to go through here in Florida. What I got so far tonight to talk about is the BSO. They're basically now, in my mind, they're basically getting rid of some people that are involved in the thing that makes it look like they're doing something that makes you think that they are being responsible and acting responsibly. What happened? You guys are terrible. Seriously. Basically, there's two guys that were placed on administrative duty pending further investigation as they participated in 23 calls for service to the shooter's home and may not have followed protocol.
May not have.
There's two others that have been under review for failing to investigate repeated complaints concerning him that may have prevented the shooting, according to a local news station. That's the thing that's going on. The other thing that we did find out is that they haven't released everything, but they have a statement now from his adoptive mother from 2016 stating that her son suffered from depression, ADHD, autism, suggesting how he was regularly consuming a cocktail of potent drugs that may have impacted his behavior and judgment. So that's another piece of the puzzle that pretty much we've mentioned before. This is always a piece of the puzzle, is the drugs. There's, most of the people that are performing these atrocious acts in some way, shape, or form are on a cocktail of different things. You guys got any comment on any of that?
Self-medication is a big problem.
I think it's interesting how all these guys are on like antidepressants and mixing that with illegal drugs and stuff. That seems to be a pretty common theme that we see here.
So what do you do about that? What's the impetus, right? Because that's the slippery slope, right? If you sit back and you say, all right, well, if you're prescribed a certain cocktail, if you're prescribed to this and that and another thing, where does that become the issue?
Well, I think it becomes the issue when you're combining that with 28 or 32 police visits in 2 years, and there's other warning signs of violent behavior that are ignored.
Okay.
Social media posts, several reports from kids at school about bizarre behavior and aggressive behavior. Agreed.
But the thing there is, you're not looking at the drugs specifically. You're looking at the behavior post drugs, right? So if you ask the question about the drugs, you're not looking at what the drugs are treating. You're looking at the symptoms after the fact. And I'm doing a little devil's advocate here, but what is where do you draw the line? And I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but where do you draw the line? Because that is the slippery slope, right?
And I get what you're saying, is there's a lot of, and this has been used for, trying to take guns away from veterans and PTSD sufferers and things like that, right? That we don't want to do, but you kind of have to look at the total combination of behavior. And I don't know if we can really legislate that. That's the hard part, right? How do you put that into a set of laws that
there's a slight echo. Whoever's not talking, if you can be muted, that'd be great. I don't know if it's Casey or Ross or whoever, but if you're not talking, if you can mute, that'd be awesome. Sorry. Go ahead, Brian. Finish that thought. I'm sorry.
No, I kind of had finished. And I get what Clint's saying, right? The slippery slope is, once you put this into legislation, how is it going to be interpreted and enforced?
Correct. And how does it?
But how do we get there?
And how does that data feed into something that actually creates something that creates action? Again, something that we all agree, no matter what side of the fence you're on these issues, that these types of people that are this type of a risk just shouldn't have guns at all.
That doesn't then translate into the good guys that we want armed having their guns taken away. Correct.
And we'll get into that when we start talking about some of the things with the Florida statutes that came up today. Well, so again, we've been over the last couple of weeks saying it's several things. It's a combination of many things, not just something specific. And I thought the fact that this statement from the mom came to light, in my world at least, it might have come out right away. I'm not even too sure. Something did come up today, and I know someone's watching that's going to be interested, because I'm pretty sure he probably saw this firsthand. But when I saw this and I looked into it and I read it in a couple different areas, and I read it again, I still can't get over it. 2 Miramar SWAT team members who went to the Parkland school shooting have been suspended. Basically, a police spokeswoman says that the officers didn't tell their supervisors they were going. So let me give you the details. 2 guys had been training in nearby Coral Springs on the morning of the February 14th shooting. The team had been placed on standby after reports of an active shooter, but the Broward Sheriff's Office never called for them. Let us be clear, the issue was not that they responded, but that they did not advise, is what was said by officials. And so basically what happened was, you had 2 guys that were training very close to where this school is. I know exactly where this is, and it's down the street, take a left, go up, take a right, and you're at the school. And I'm sure, because it's a Coral Springs Police Training Center, that as soon as these calls went out, the center, the officers that were there training people, and everyone there became aware that there was an active shooter situation at a nearby high school. These 2 men decided to jump in and join the fight and go towards the sound of gunfire, as we say, and they've been suspended because they didn't follow protocol. I call bullshit. Now, the only reason that I've been told that this is a big deal is because when the story we covered over a year ago about the guy who got off the airplane in Fort Lauderdale and was in the baggage area and took out started shooting people, apparently over 2,000 police officers from all around showed up ready to take care of business. And so they wanted to mitigate those types of situations. And since then, there apparently has been some, hey, not everybody show up. Or if you're going to show up, make sure you let us know, is what it sounds like they're saying here. SWAT team members have been suspended, quote, for violating the department's social media policy by disseminating information regarding crimes or incidents, thus discrediting the agency and violating the department's code of conduct, is the other part of this. What else? Yeah, that's basically all the details that are out there. They were heavily armed. Oh, hold on. By the way, I'm getting some intel that, again, adds to the story, as I thought I would. Thanks, buddy. Quote, heavily armed, highly experienced operators in very close proximity is what you had reacting to the situation.
So I hate to sound like Ross, but I'm going to take Ross's position on this, right? I'm sorry, I hate to use the buzzwords or whatever it is, but to me that screams like cover-up, controversy, deep state, like all of those things. Like, stand the fuck down, let this happen, and see what shakes out, because you've got folks that are there that are capable of stopping the incident in a very quick and expedient manner. I don't know. I mean, this all screams really, really, really bad stuff to me.
I didn't hear that so much as, again, guys that were training close by they did go and react. They did go and participate in this activity. They did. They were there. But they're being reprimanded. They're SWAT team members that were training, that went to help a situation that was local where kids were being shot, and their agency is now putting them under review.
Agreed, but post-mortem, they're setting up the response for what happens with number 2, number 3, number 4. They're building a case. They're building a level of response. I don't know. Ross, where are you at on that?
Well, I can tell you that I've seen some stuff lately on how absurd the reaction to the shooting was, and just the fact that there were people who held back because they didn't have body cameras. Like, the sense of urgency for this thing was completely like neglected. Like, there was no sense of urgency to go save kids.
Good question. Good question from Declan. Does any off-duty first responder call dispatch and notify them if they were close by and heard something and ran and responded? Who knows? I know the guy that was watering the field didn't have time to do that.
Well, wouldn't you want all hands on deck? I mean, if you had trained operators out there, let's put it in fire companies' regards. If there were a fire team that was near the situation with their equipment and their skills, you wouldn't discipline them for going and helping in this situation. You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem right unless you're worried about your reputation. Like, your guys couldn't do it, and these out-of-towners can. It just doesn't seem right. I agree with you, Clint. Not that I'm big on the conspiracy theory thing, but it's been a question that's been out there on some YouTube channels of some people who've been in the industry and who are LEO and stuff like that, that things didn't go down quite right over there. Something's weird.
No, in this particular case, I grew up with a guy that was SWAT team, and he off-duty responded to a couple of calls. He was dating my mother when I was growing up. And I witnessed him call in and say, hey, I'm heading to this. Part of it is you don't want an armed guy showing up in civilian clothes. You need the deputies that are also going to be there know that he's one of them. They may not recognize him immediately, but in this situation, I would say just take the suspension and roll with it, knowing you made the right call regardless. I don't know.
All right. To me, it's just ridiculous. It's insane.
To me, it's ridiculous as well, Kevin. I'm having a real hard time with. Actually, for me, the biggest thing in this whole thing is response times, right? 20 minutes, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot going on there. I'm having a hard time with now you want to go and punish folks, right? So we stand on this thing, or actually not us, the opposition stands on this thing of, let's give the LEO, let's give law enforcement the opportunity to protect us. They're going to save us, right? They're going to, we don't need guns because, right, the LEO does, right? But we, in this particular situation now, are going to punish those folks that are sworn or are committed to protecting us in a situation because they didn't call in and say we're coming in. I'm starting to have some real big problems with this.
Well, my bigger problem is, again, the BSO that didn't go in as a result of two different things that they've said. They said, one, they didn't have body cams, and that somehow violated something, so they didn't go in until CSPD showed up and ran past them. And then you also have the recently released, they released the lady's name, Brian. We were talking about this. You said it was released more than a week ago or something like that. But the sheriff, who they're in essence blaming under Israel, correct? Yeah, the
captain that gave the stand down order, or the stay out order.
Which, again, back to Clint, that shit doesn't add up at all. That doesn't add up at all.
No, and to Clint's point, they're create with this disciplinary action and all this stuff. They're creating a situation where cops are going to hesitate to respond to things like this, and I think that's really just not a great thing to do.
Well, take this at face value. Just look at it at face value. Those cops value their lives more than they value your kids' lives, and they just proved it right there.
Now, let's be specific here, Ross. The ones that did not go in right away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I'm only talking about the ones that were there first and did nothing.
Well, Ross, I'm going to take exception with that, because one of the major issues in training when you learn that is you've got to preserve self first, right? You can't be effective in a fight unless you preserve self first, right? If you're not alive, then you can't protect anyone else. So you can't take that side of the coin. I do see where you're coming from, but you can't take that side of the coin. The flip side of it, where I'm having an issue is that folks are getting posthumously chastised for taking action. So they secured themselves, they made sure they were good, they responded to an incident, and now they're getting chastised for responding to an incident. To me, that's the bigger issue.
I'm getting the same feeling.
I agree with you, except that the fact that Coral Springs went in right behind them and did what had to be done versus BSO, who stood there and waited for Coral Springs to get there.
Self-preservation is not the priority on these, is according to people that were on scene and involved in this situation. And that is I take that same case. That whole self-preservation means you take cover, you take strategic action. You don't go run out in the middle of a hallway when you hear gunfire. You make sure that you take it tactically, in my mind, Clint. It's not about, again, that cop that didn't go in at all, the security guard that everyone knows just took a position at the bottom of the stairway and waited. He should have, again, in my mind, someone somewhere along the way should have asked him along the way, hey, are you ready to take a bullet for these kids that you guard every day? And if the answer is no, they should have found someone new.
Well, see, here's a problem that I find is you have, and I'm going to call them, and I'm sorry if I offend people that watch your stuff. I'm going to call the coward who hid behind the bushes for 6 minutes that didn't go in. He gets fired. Now you have SWAT team people that were willing to go in and do what they had to do. They're being suspended because they didn't follow quote unquote regulations to the T by the book. So exactly what do people want the law enforcement to do? I wish they would explain this, because you have both sides of the spectrum here being basically either fired or suspended because they're doing opposite things. One was hiding, and two guys went in there, maybe not under complete regulations, but they went in to try to help kids, and they're both being basically strung up by public appeal. I don't understand exactly what people, and not just in Florida, but anywhere.
Well, the other thing that we don't have, we don't have the exact information of what these guys did, and I think that would help the argument quite a bit, to be honest with you.
So to be clear, when we started this particular part of the conversation, we weren't talking about BSO. We were talking about these two individuals, right? I agree. The BSO guys, absolute freaking cowards. I have no qualm in calling that out, right? I'm talking about these particular 2 SWAT guys, right? And how they're being treated. I'm not talking about the response from BSO.
And this is
So
also
what I'm saying is you have two different issues here. One is a coward who got fired. The other ones are suspended because they didn't follow regs. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying, you know, I wish someone would come in and say, then if you're going to suspend these 2 guys and fire this guy, well, what's the middle ground? What exactly are they supposed to do? You know, I mean, and that's the message that they're sending to the whole country is mass confusion with our law enforcement. That's not good.
According to the statement from their official, they're hiding behind the. It's not that they did it; it's that they didn't tell us they were doing it. And I say they barely had time to put in the car and get there and run. Exactly. Who gives a shit?
Is it possible that with the with Miramar that it's because of the cowardice of the other ones and the emotions invoked there and played there that people are getting a little bit, I don't know, overzealous or riled up over the Miramar because this may just be some type of a little administrative slap on the wrist type thing more than they're getting fired and chastised for something?
I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, that's a voice of reason, right? I mean, but in the modern day culture of the media, there is no voice of reason. So I agree with you. I don't disagree. Don't get me wrong. Don't flip it. My point is that in the modern day voice of reactionary culture, these guys are being set up for something else down the road, right? It's and what they're being set up for is I guess a hesitation in the response of LEO. It's setting a culture of we can't respond because we're going to get slapped on the wrist. And the more we get slapped on the wrist, the less we're going to be likely to respond. That's really the point I was trying to make.
And I agree with that 100%. So here's the thing that I ask is if that's the case, and I believe you're right. I believe that is probably very true what's going to happen. The problem I have is to this day we have had from law enforcement or the state Congress and senators, we have yet to hear any kind of legislation or even ideas of how to fix it. So you're going to chastise all these law enforcement. You're going to set up for this thing where they're not going to be able to respond. But what's the solution? Why isn't the law enforcement coming up with ideas as to how to fix it instead of making excuses? That's my problem. And it's not just in Florida, it's everywhere.
Okay, well, and let me address that really quickly. It is not the position of law enforcement to make policy. That's not what they do, first of all. But
that's why I said Congress and state senators also.
Agreed. But secondarily, and I probably didn't say this coming into this, and Kevin's probably going to have words with me after the fact, but I'm going to, just to set a caveat for this entire thing, I'm going to play a little devil's advocate on some of these things, right? And it's not because I disagree with anyone on the panel, right? But there are some things that I think need to be bubbled up and need to be brought to light that I'm going to play a little devil's advocate. So don't take my responses as an indication of my position, but you may find me to say something that's contrary to what you might expect.
He's like Ross on Adderall. Brian, like
that's not fair.
Mean, Kevin.
I am Ross today. Like Ross is being really cool, but I am Ross today.
We're good. We'll get him there sometime. Trust me, it's coming because he's gonna get mad about constitutions sooner than later.
I'm actually boiling a little bit, but I'm trying to keep it under control. I'm in the chat, so.
All right, let me throw this out there, and then we're gonna shift gears to some other things. Just to throw it out there and follow up. I don't say his name. Dude withdrew his guilty plea today in connection with the February 14th mass shooting. According to the document, a written plea of not guilty was filed before the formal charges were brought. So he was indicted Wednesday by the grand jury this week. 17 counts of first-degree murder, 17 counts of attempted murder. And those, again, were additional, not included with the 17 that he killed. He now, quote, stands mute, unquote, to the charges against him. And I am not a lawyer, but that's a new one to me. Stands mute. How do you plead? I stand mute. I haven't heard that one before.
I believe this is in response to Florida refusing not to give him the death penalty.
Well, all right.
Is that like pleading no contest? I mean, I don't know. Is that the same thing as no contest or what?
No,
Again.
no. Stands mute is I refuse. It's a Fifth Amendment response.
Okay, so he's saying I'm not going to do anything to incriminate myself, basically.
He's not gonna answer either way.
All right. Moving on. Bill to arm some Florida teachers, restrict rifle sales, passes the State House, goes to the governor. So Senate, House passed it today or yesterday, and they put it on Rick Scott's desk this morning. And there's a lot to talk about in this one. They're calling it the safety bill, a school safety bill, and includes new restrictions on rifle sales and a program to arm some teachers, as I said. The vote of 67 to 50 reflected a mix of Republicans and Democrats in support and opposition. The measure is what they're trying to get done. And Rick Scott said it, I think, week one. We want to get something done in the next couple weeks. You've had a lot of the victims' families, a lot of the kids in Tallahassee talking to lawmakers, talking to Rick Scott. He was here for several of the funerals. He has spoken one-on-one with several of the families. He's been in D.C. at those round tables, etc. And most people think he's going to sign it. In fact, I haven't talked to anybody who thinks he's going to veto it. And in essence, you've got four major things in here. And again, it's 105 pages long. It's a very difficult read on purpose. As we were saying in the pre-show, it's a rough read. They can't just make it a 10-page bullet point. Here's, if this, then this. And these are what we're adding. This is what we're trying to change. It's way more confusing. But in essence, the big thing that they did was they changed the age from 21 to 18 to purchase a rifle in the state. And that has passed, like I said. And what they're saying is there's a few caveats in there. If you're active, reserve, military, and or if you're law enforcement, and I think there was something else on the list, they're going to waive that. And then also, it's not to possess it, it's to purchase it. So like in other states where as a 21-year-old adult, or let's just call it a 30-year-old adult, if you have an 8-year-old son that goes hunting with you every year and you need to get him a rifle, you all go to the store and you buy the rifle and you bring it home and he possesses it and carries it and brings it and shoots it and takes it home and cleans it and possesses it, so to speak. So they're changing it that from 18 to 21. So if you have someone, and I think they said a parent or guardian, if I read it correctly, accompanies you, then and you're 18 to 21. In that case, you can, again, you're not going to purchase it. The older person's going to purchase it, but you're allowed to possess it. 3-day wait period on everything, unless you have the concealed carry weapons permit. And for anyone watching for the first time, that means that you've gone through the process of applying to the state, having a full FBI background check, going to your local sheriff's department, submitting your fingerprints to them on a card. They do that. Then you submit that whole thing to the state along with a certificate, say that you've had a training class, and then they allow you to get your card. So once you have that, you're basically allowed to go into a gun store and buy a gun and walk out that day, as long as, once again, they're going to still do a NICS check on you. They're still going to call in when you fill out the whole form. It's not like you walk in and say, hey, I want it, here's my cash, and you go. They got to call it in. It's got to go through, etc. What do you guys think about that one? 18 to 21.
Terrible. I mean, there's really no, we've discussed this last week, but that's just opening a door for so much more. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't see how without opening a box that includes a lot of other things, moving a lot of other things to 21. Yeah, I don't see how it works.
even with the provision to have your parents come buy it if you want one?
Dude, at 18, you're an adult. You go to big boy jail. You pay for your consequences differently once you hit 18.
So
The Constitution applies to you at 18. Period.
You can vote at 18.
I have a different perspective on this.
Go.
Give this up. Like, give this up. Let this go. Let this thing happen. With caveats. The caveats are you lose your right to vote. You lose your right to serve. You lose your right to drive. If adult is defined as 21, then move all of those privileges, not rights, but privileges, to 21.
Yeah, that's the only way. Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Wait a minute. Well, what about the fact that you can buy a pistol at 21 and everyone agrees that everyone should wait to 21 and no one objects to that? No one's been holding up picket signs or talking about the fact that you have to wait.
I still think that's correct too.
So I'm a
Wait, I have the right to bear arms. I'm 18. You let me buy a rifle. Why can't I buy a pistol?
Kevin, I come from a state where you can't buy an AR until you're 21 anyway, right? But I'm telling you that in my perspective, from where I come from, I'm okay. 21, fine, whatever. I don't give a flip. I don't care. But there needs to be consequences on the other side of the coin, right? You can't drive, you can't vote, you can't serve in the army, military, right? And quite honestly,
you're trying to punish the kid for giving up the one to get more.
Hang on, give me
but I appreciate the consistency that Clint's talking about. This is called consistency.
Give me a minute. And quite honestly, I want to go to 25. I want to go to 25 on all that because the federal health care law now says that as you're a child and you have to be able to be under federal health care of your parents. Your parents have to provide health care for you until you're 25 because you can't be an adult until you're 25 for health care, which, hey, by the way, we're talking about healthcare. We're talking about healthcare when people are, so we have issues. We're on drugs. We're on this. We're on that. Like we're bordering on a really weird thing here, right? So fuck it. 25. 25 says you can buy a gun. You can any firearm. You can drive. You can join the military. You can. You're off your parents' health care. That's the age that you're actually an adult. That's what I'm talking about. Define the age that we as a collective group of citizens say that you're now a citizen of our country.
Clint, do you have kids?
No, I don't.
God, dude, my kids are not hanging out until they're 26 years old. There's no freaking way. My kids are out when they get to college. They go to college. They have fun. They get out of college. They're adults. If that's 21, okay, then we need to change the voting laws. We need to change, obviously, the drinking laws, but there's some contention there on the drinking age. You know, we say you got to be 21 to inebriate yourself. I think that's legitimate. Drinking's not a right. The Second Amendment is the right. So that means that people don't go to big boy jail until they're 21. Anybody have a problem with that?
Well, Ross, here's the thing. Where do we slide down the slope? Where do we skip out, right? And so the flip side is if you want to take rights away, if you want to take a God-given right, which is what the Second Amendment says, right? If you want to take a God-given right away from someone, right, and define them as an adult by a firearms purchase, then take the rest of their rights away that are not God-given, right? And make them 21.
How does that apply?
The fact of the matter, in a free country, we shouldn't be taking anybody's rights. I thought this was a free country.
But you're missing.
There has to be some age on it, Ross, to buy a gun. There has to be an age, right?
We've already established that you don't have to go to big boy jail until you're 18.
Let's forget the fantasy of 25. I understand it, Clint. It's the age that most people say your brain is fully developed, right? That's where it's not until then, and I get that. But we're talking about what is, and what is in America is 21 and 18. Those are the two numbers that are used that allow people to arm themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
With a gun. And we haven't even touched on the fact that you can have a samurai sword collection and a knife collection left, right, and center.
What is it? 19 people in a mass murder in China, right? Or Japan, or wherever the hell it was.
That's the one that's always brought up. We know that knives. But what
can we be clear? Can we be clear on the Second Amendment? The Second Amendment does not give us the right to do anything. It restricts the right. It restricts the power of the government to limit the right of a free state to possess and own firearms.
Again, but it has nothing to do with age in the Constitution, and that's what we're talking about. And we're also talking about, once again, the fact that we're now grown adults trying to figure out what the rules should be. So not from the 50s, not from the 1700s, today, with all of the psychotropic drugs that we've just talked about, with all the influence of culture that we've talked about, with all the lapses in school security that we've talked about, we're talking about this little sliver that they're trying to fix called guns. And under that little sliver, they're saying no more 18, now it's 21. And if you're in the military, you can get a gun. If you work for the police, you can get a gun. If you walk into a gun store with your parents, you can get a gun. Are they really restricting your Second Amendment right?
So, and Ross, let me throw this out.
Wait, someone answer me. I want to know.
No, hang on. Let me throw this out for a second. Oh shit, is my wife? So Ross, let me throw this out for a second. When the Constitution was written, it was written around citizens. What defined a citizen? And that's a question.
What defines a citizen? If you're a legal citizen of this country,
natural born or naturalized adult.
That's correct.
Whatever the legal.
But
this goes back to,
wait. But you
back to a point I made a couple of weeks ago.
Wait. You hit it. Natural born or natural adult. Adult. What is an adult? Define
18. The Constitution applies to you at 18 years old in this country.
Show me in writing where that's written.
I can show you that you can go to federal prison and be convicted of a crime at the age of 18. I can show you, being a veteran, that you can serve your country and die for your country at 18 years old. If that's not an adult, then show me me where it's not there.
Remember, I'm playing devil's advocate, right?
I understand, and I'm answering that question. Show me where it's not the right to go die for your country and to vote and actually decide elections. If you can do those two things, then why in the hell can you not own a firearm?
So back up.
Stop it. Under the provision that we're talking about tonight, under what's going on in Florida, you can.
If you go and join the military. No, if you're a police.
Mommy and daddy buy it for you, which is not a...
Sure.
Wait.
This goes back to
You're
my
telling
point
me that I have to go get parental permission to buy a firearm under this provision, and I can go and join the military if I choose to, but I have to go take mom and dad to the gun shop with me.
Wait,
correct.
Where does that make sense?
Because if you go to the military, you're going to have someone overseeing every round that comes out of that gun. If you go and you don't have mom and dad with you, and they, again, to me, are a logical backstop.
Okay. So is mom and dad going to? So if mom and dad have to go buy that gun for you, is mom and dad have to be there while you're training also?
Wow, that's a really valid point, Kevin.
No. My point is, if mom and dad are there, they're at least giving the consent to the gun store and everybody around that they understand that you're taking possession of the gun.
No, Kevin. My statement was, what you made was a valid point. You're doing it with supervision. You're doing it under the auspices of training. You're doing it in the military. Like you've got a staff sergeant standing over your shoulder going, "Hey, dumbass, you're not doing this the right way." The gun
goes back into the armory at the end of every day. It doesn't go back with you to your bunk.
Yeah, copy that.
I mean, I'm not I am playing devil's advocate and going both ways on this because I'm sitting here and I'm like, this is what's going to be here. I'm pretty confident that this is what's going to be. So I'm trying to grasp it and say, really, how bad is it? So I'm looking at it, Trey, and I'm saying, yeah, it's going down to 18, but they're putting in the provisions that, again, they basically solve the whole, hey, if you can go to the military, well, yep, if you can go to the military, then you can own it. Okay, cool. Well, what about everyone else? Once again, they're doing this because they're trying to make sure that this thing doesn't happen again. So they're saying,
I understand that, and I'm all for that. I get that. I'm saying is if you're going to make that 21, then move the voting age to 21, move the age of serving your military at 21. If 21 is the new definition of an adult, then move it all. But you can't just move one thing.
You're saying that gun legislation dictates age in America. That's crazy.
No, Trey, that is what I said. Like
I know.
I'm willing.
What I'm saying is if right now they're saying we're gonna legislate one thing and not everything. That's what I have a problem with.
And we're in huge agreement there, right? I'm not willing. Yeah. I'm not willing as a supporter of the Second Amendment to say that I'm going to give up the right to own a rifle, right? Whatever that rifle may be. It's a scary black gun because you say I'm not that a person is not able to own that or not mature enough or whatever the case may be at 21, unless I'm willing to say at the same time, great, I'll give that up, but you can't drive, you can't vote, you can't join the military, you can't do any of the other things that regard you as an adult, right? Because technically at 16, when you get a license, you are an adult because we have proven there is numbers out there that show that the most deadly weapon in the fucking country is a vehicle.
Yeah. This is the point I made a couple weeks ago where we send mixed signals to these kids. They're old enough to drive and operate an incredibly dangerous object at 16. They can be charged as an adult at 16 too if they commit a crime with certain circumstances. So we tell them that they can drive at 16, they can drink at 21, they can fight and die for their country at 18, sometimes 17. That there's no consistency there. So I appreciate Clint's point that.
I appreciate it. I'm just saying if we're going to do it, let's do it all of it.
Well,
That's
just
as an opt into adulthood kind of thing where you sign the paperwork and say, hey, I'm 18. I accept all my responsibilities. The second point I have is that, okay, say an 18-year-old goes down there and mom and dad sign the paperwork and they take possession of that gun. Is mom and dad now legally responsible for whatever they do with that firearm until they're 21?
That's a great question. And here's another question for those out in the chat. And let's just say whatever happens, happens. The question on the table is how is this law, if it becomes a law, how is this law going to prevent the next shooting? Because we all know that criminals don't care about the law. They're going to figure out a way.
It's not going to prevent it, but it's a step.
So what's the point?
Because it's a step with you fix all the other things that we've been talking about. If you take a step towards it, never.
Versus it's not a step. It's infringing upon the right.
Better about
it's
themselves.
Not a step at all. The Vegas shooter was in his 50s, and the Sandy Hook shooter was underage. Neither one of those would have been stopped by this. This is not going to help anybody.
He was not 21, Ross.
What?
This shooter was not 21 years old.
I know, but the Sandy Hook shooter was underage.
Okay.
This is not going to help. They're going to get the guns regardless of what the age is.
Yeah.
The Vegas shooter was 50. So do we make it 60?
All cool up until today with everyone having to wait to get a pistol.
You know what? That's a misnomer, dude. The fact of the matter is that someone was able to pass a law to make it 21.
And it's really not that bad, but I'm just saying.
The fact of the matter is there was some overreach and there was some we're going to stop gangs from shooting each other. We're going to make that law 21. And it did nothing to curb the violence of gun mass shootings or shootings in that situation. But nobody changed that law. We allowed it to happen, and we are not an active group of people. We do not go and actively seek the rights that have been taken from us. And that's how we got to the 21. It's not that we're okay with 21.
But you weren't objecting about it last week or any time before. Right. It didn't matter.
No, you know what? It never even crossed my mind.
Just like you accept the background. Just like you accept the background check, and you go in and pick one up.
Guys. Nobody on this
panel. Hold on. We don't say guys.
Guys.
We don't say guys.
Nobody on this panel is okay with 21. Nobody on this panel is okay with 25. Don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. I'm not okay with moving this to 21 or 25. Okay. I don't care about that. That's not the point. The point is that if there's going to be a change, if there's going to be a modification to the rule, then make that modification to the rule across the board. Define the age of the child and then apply the law.
That's not how they do it. So I mean that's idealistic for sure, but that's not how things are done.
Yeah, but everything has a definition. So especially
we just went through an argument where we realized that 18 different things have 18 different ages.
Yeah, but when it comes to law, that's what I'm saying though. When it comes to law, when a word is a standard practice, when you use a word, you know, it is a definition, and I see what they're saying. So you can't be, you know, in a federal, you know, whether we adopt it at a federal or state level, at some point, when you're an adult across the board. You can't be an adult, you know, that votes, but I'm sorry, you're not an adult for 3 more years, enough of adult to buy a gun.
Well, I think, right now, honestly, the bar has been set. You're not an adult until you have to buy your own health care, because quite honestly, health care and your own insurance is the thing right now that is the top level tier of being an adult. It's 25 years old based on the current healthcare system. So is an adult defined as 25 years old? And if that is the case, right? If that is the case, then every right, every freedom, everything that we enjoy based on the Constitution needs to be based on the fact that you are an adult and you're a contributing member of society.
Can I bring up 2 things?
Go ahead, please.
Based upon the U.S. Department of State website, when a child becomes an adult at the age of 18 in the United States. You also, if you're a ward of the state, get kicked out of the system at the age of 18. So that means if you're a kid who's a ward of the state, you turn 18 and now you want to go buy a gun because you're a ward of the state, you can't go to college because you have no money, you're working a dead-end job, and you're in a really bad neighborhood, you now have no way of defending yourself because you have no adult that can go and buy that weapon for you. It's just another one of those things where you slip through the cracks.
While I agree with that 100%, what we're arguing here, what we're talking about here is if you take the healthcare statute that was put in place, right? And healthcare is a big deal, and you guys know that as it relates to gun control, right? The healthcare law, the healthcare statute says that if you have parents that have healthcare, they are legally obligated to provide for you healthcare up until the age of 25. So you have now taken what constitutional law says is 18 for an adult, and you've moved that to 25. Because I don't care who you are, you're a ward of the state, you now have fallen into this gray area in between 18 and 25. And once again, guys, I'm not trying to be abusive. I'm not trying to be combative. I'm just trying to raise a point here, and I'm actually trying to bring to light what we're fighting against, right? Like what we're actually disagreeing with. We're disagreeing with ourselves, and we can't sort this out with ourselves, and we're all staunch supporters of the Second Amendment. We need to consider these things so we have a cohesive argument and a cohesive response to the Second Amendment.
And based on that, we need to keep it moving. I do appreciate that, though. It's going from 21 to 18 in Florida. I mean, from 18 to 21, again, with those caveats. The other thing that they're talking about is the waiting period. Like I said, there would be a guardian program that would let school employees and many teachers carry handguns if they go through law enforcement training and if the school district decides to participate in the program. Other provisions would create, well, let's talk about that. So they listed all the hours and everything, and I didn't take notes on it when I was reading the bill the other night, but I think it was like 100 hours or some crazy amount of hours. They had to take a lot of training. It wasn't just a handgun class. Anybody got issues with people carrying, with the teachers being armed if they go through a proper amount of training?
Arm them. Absolutely arm them. Give them a gun.
Who's paying for it?
Probably the state.
Okay, so what, we're paying for it?
Yeah, $400 million to just the mental health part of this bill.
No, I say use it like, or treat it like they treat teachers that get, second language training, advanced degrees. They get either compensation on the back end or something like that. I don't.
Yeah, give them a stipend if they're willing to go through the training.
And in this situation, I actually don't have a problem with them getting extra training if they're going to be expected, or the expectation is that they will respond to an active shooter in a crowded hallway full of kids and stuff. Yeah, there's things you need to consider before, or above and beyond a concealed carry class, right?
I see it this way, Brian. They have two choices. They can lock down their campuses, employ metal detectors and officers in the entryway, the one entryway in and out of the building, which will cost millions of dollars for each school system to employ, or they can train their teachers at $600 to $800 a teacher per class, have a willing, able body to do the job. And you kill two birds with one stone. You have a group of teachers who are enthusiastic Second Amendment supporters who are now extremely well trained to protect your children, and you eliminate the need to make our schools jails.
Ross.
No, I don't think you eliminate it. I think it's a both. You're not going to be able to do that.
Ross, let me ask you this question. How many teachers do you actually think, based on what you know and what you understand about society, are willing to take up arms against any threat, right?
Not many.
So Clint, I know this. I know that there are teachers in our chat group when we do this show out of Oregon and places that are pretty tight, that say that they would absolutely love to be able to protect themselves in the event that someone invades their school. They're tired of being soft targets. They're tired of not knowing what to do. And they're certainly tired of cowering in a corner and making themselves bait, a little grouse for the picking.
And
there's a teacher in the chat room right now. Travis P11 is an educator from Nebraska. He's in the chat right now saying no stipend needed. If you're already concealed carry license holder in your state, go through the extra training and let me carry on campus. He's already got his license. He's already got his gun probably. There's no stipend needed. If you already got it, let him go.
If you're already there, or you have an affinity to be there, then why not promote it? Why not give them the training that's necessary for them to be proficient?
Well, one of the problems, though,
that a teacher or a sufficient number of teachers per school is going to do that. If you get into a really liberal area, these teachers won't do it. And
that's their choice. Leave them the option.
I don't see many school systems taking the flack from saying, okay, because the state, it looks like they're leaving it up to the school board or whoever to decide if they're going to be a school that participates in this. I just don't see, I would think for the general public that, promoting this and approving it at the school board for, Johnny's school is going to be a PR nightmare.
So let me throw this out there.
Hold on. It's not a PR nightmare in a state that just mandated it with passing a law on it. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about just randomly.
No, but I'm saying even in Florida, do you think in Florida, if next year, Parkland City or, whatever the county is, they say, all right, the school board votes to let teachers carry. Don't you think there's going to be a public outcry of people saying, even at Stoneman Douglas, don't you think
here?
Huh?
Yeah, because they've made the gun the enemy here.
Okay, but let me carry that a little farther. Let me carry that just a little bit farther. How does that fix New York? How does that fix Chicago? How does that fix LA? If you legalize guns in schools in New York City, which you can't carry a gun in the city of New York, right? How does a teacher even get to the school with a gun? And think about the level. Think about the mindset of the people of the teachers that are in those schools.
Yeah, that's a great point.
The issue is not about rural America. The issue is about suburban or urban America, right? And that's where the you're
talking about a gun-free state and city versus,
But you're talking about a rule. You're talking about a national rule, Kevin.
But we're not talking about
we're talking about states. States are the one.
We're talking about added measures. We're not talking about a fix-all.
Yeah, but
we're just talking about added measures.
The states are the one who's going to
keep our precious kids safe.
Yeah, but the thing is, you're talking about making a rule that applies nationally, right?
No, it would be a state law.
I absolutely oppose of any federal law. I absolutely oppose of any federal law. This is a state's issue.
No, Clint,
it's not been a state's issue. It's not been a state's issue, and it's not a state's issue.
Clint, we're talking about the Florida law that went from the House to the Senate to the House, and now is on Rick Scott's desk, and this is in it.
Agreed. I 100% agree with that.
You're saying you think they're going to use it as the model for the rest of the states in the country?
100%. I think that will be the model.
I think the beauty of the state system says that the states that want to employ it will employ it, and we'll see the trend. The feds will see the trend that these schools tend to deal with those situations better than these schools, if it's allowed to happen on that level. Right now, they want to move that on a federal level, which is an absolute no-no.
All right. Let's keep it moving. Sorry. So the teachers is definitely a hot issue as well. So 18 to 21 is an issue. Teachers is definitely an issue. It's top of the hour. I'm not going to midnight on this. I'm just telling you now. Bump stocks and devices that potentially increase the rate of fire, tools, all that language is in there as well.
Get rid of them.
We've been talking about this forever. Until there is a defined definition of rate of fire, you cannot legislate anything that increases rate of fire until they set a baseline.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say they do. Let's say they pass this, and that is in there because that's where we are. It's imminent. It's going to go through, right? And that language is in there. So now, again, anyone that's got Geisley triggers, in essence, and that whole list that everyone's saying, here, now that anyone's got anything they've done to a rifle, how is that going to be enforced? How are you going to have someone come to you and be like, hey, that's got a rate increasing device on it? And you say, no, that's how I bought it.
No, I've actually got a question real quick.
You can look at Massachusetts and tell that it's with their bump stock ban they did, and quickly tell it's non-enforceable for the most part.
Yeah. So I got a question for you, Kevin.
The bad thing that everyone, again, if you own one, you have to turn it in. I see all that. You can't sell them. You can't buy them. They're an illegal item. It might as well be a big brick of cocaine, right?
I got a question for you, Kevin.
Go ahead.
What does Florida, is it in the bill? Does Florida define a rate of fire in that bill?
No.
I didn't see it, but I didn't go deep enough.
No, I have the text of this particular part open on my desktop.
And they never will be able to because it's subjective on the user.
Exactly.
If my finger works a rate of fire, then I'm a faster shooter and girls may like me more. I don't know.
And they admit as much in the legislation, the way I read it.
Yeah, I expect either this to be unenforceable or Rick Scott to line item veto this piece of it because it is unenforceable. And it says possession, so there's no way they're going to go and try to collect all of these. It's just not going to happen. Not here in Florida.
Got it.
You know, I just protest because this happened one time out of all the mass shootings that we've had. This shit happened once, and
Ross,
we want to ban all those devices now.
Allegedly.
Ross, where's the proof that it was even done?
It's fair enough, man. I'm giving them
they said we found 14
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. There's
one.
thousands of these out there, and it's only happened once.
Allegedly.
So it's another encroachment. It's another piece of the pie. It's another bite out of the Second Amendment, which is the government shall not encroach on our right to bear arms. It's sad.
To call you on that, encroach is not the word.
It's infringe. But the other question I have is there anyone on the panel that is, again, everybody here is in essence a shooter. Is there anyone that would rather have a bump stock on a gun than not?
Hell no.
No.
I don't even know. But don't take it from me. Don't tell me that I can't have one.
I'm asking. Does everyone agree that it's a piece of shit that you would rather not have?
Absolutely.
Yes.
It would actually put you in a gunfight. It would put you at a disadvantage.
Yes, that's true.
I would say that most, even very proficient shooters, will not even know how to use a bump stock properly in the very beginning. Right away.
You know, guys, the fact of the matter is you don't need a bump stock to bump fire your rifle.
Exactly.
We understand that's irrelevant.
You're fine.
That's irrelevant because they're going after this device.
Never bring that up again. Like, that is the argument. Don't bring that up again.
Yeah, right. Because common sense makes no impact on the situation.
Exactly. It doesn't. It doesn't make any impact on the situation. The fact is that let bump stocks go. Like, let them go. Where it becomes a thing is when they define rate of fire or
Google. When did bump stocks come into vogue, and why are we fighting so viciously for them? You don't have to answer that second part. But when were they first developed and introduced to the market? 5 years ago?
Yeah, if that.
But isn't the potential danger in banning quote unquote rate increasing devices? Isn't the potential danger with passing those without an established baseline that at that point a bureaucracy can just be tasked with creating a baseline?
Yes.
But doesn't the first part of the bump stock doesn't the first part of the bump stock language somewhat resonate in that it says simulating a machine gun, which is something they've already regulated and said the average guy can't get. So they're basically saying
not in the language of this bill.
It doesn't say it at the beginning there in that first sentence.
I'll read it if you want.
No, I don't want you to. I read it earlier.
Yeah. No, there's nothing.
I think we can all agree.
There's nothing about simulating machine gun fire.
I think we can all agree that we wish bump stocks were never invented.
See, I don't think it started. Dan, I disagree with you on this one. For the first time ever, I disagree with Dan because I don't think it starts a slippery slope just to say, okay, bump stock only, gone forever.
No, not to say bump stock only, but to say rate increasing devices is too vague.
Correct, 100%. And again, I got a problem with the fact that they're going after the bump stock in the first place. It's never been proven to do anything bad or terrible. So
hold on.
Hang on. I read the federal law. I read the Florida law, not federal law. Sorry. And it doesn't say rate increasing devices. It says bump stocks, right?
Well, hold on, because it defines bump stock.
Yeah, go ahead.
Term bump stock means a conversion kit, a tool, an accessory, or device used to alter the rate of fire of a firearm to mimic automatic weapon fire, or which is used to increase the rate of fire to a faster rate than is possible for a person to fire such semi-automatic firearm unassisted.
Actually,
yeah, see, they're creating a brand new definition of bump stock is what they're doing.
But you know what?
You ready for this? You ready for this perspective?
Oh boy.
Is this bump stock ban, if I have this bump stock on when I kill somebody, is my sentence going to be worse?
Yes.
No, it's not. If you kill somebody.
No, it's not. You're going to be the death penalty regardless. But here's the problem with that whole statement right there is this.
Pretty interesting law. So if I go and kill somebody with my bump stock, It really doesn't matter.
But see, here's a problem, Ross, is the way that the Florida bill is defining a bump stock. It's not what we know as a bump stock. It's binary triggers.
Regardless,
your trigger.
if I'm a law-abiding citizen
All
and
of it
I've
is
done
considered now a
nothing
bump
wrong
stock.
and I own one of these devices, my shit gets extra punishment. Yet if I go out and murder somebody with this device, nothing worse happens to me.
No.
Something's wrong with that logic.
It depends on the situation, Ross. If it's manslaughter or second-degree murder, they're tacking this on as an extra charge.
What about
Guys, this
clear
is an
cuts?
attack
You know,
on
self-defense.
law-abiding
It's like if you were using an
citizens.
SPR that wasn't registered, Ross. It's the same.
Exactly.
It's the same thing. It's like if you again, it's like if you had an AR pistol and you put a stock on it and used it. And you're like, oh shit, you using, you know.
During all of this, I got a question. During all of this bump stock debate and rate increasing devices, has anybody heard anyone out there mention, a ban on manufacture? Like 86 and like 94 when they couldn't manufacture. Is anybody talking at all about that, or are they just talking about nobody can possess them anymore?
No, it's just sale and possession, at least in the state of Florida. But the interesting part of this language is that it's talking about a faster rate than is achievable by a person with semi-automatic fire.
Which is very open. And to me, that is kind of a definition. But it's kind of a definition because if you can have, like you said earlier in the pre-chat, you put Jerry Miculek up there with the semi and he's firing off,
He's faster than most full auto guns.
Exactly.
So
it's subjective.
This goes through and somehow what? The enforcement police are going to go to the range and see who's firing faster and then question them and look at their stuff and then confiscate their shit and then someone's going to have a lawsuit.
No, it's language enforceable. No one's going to do that. But
that's what I'm saying.
Semi-automatic.
No one got busted for having arm braces.
Actually, you know what, guys? I welcome that. I welcome that because Heller says that we are covered by that, right? Will not be infringed. That's a Supreme Court legislation that is out there. So, yeah, come to the range. Like, grab my shit. Like, find my guns. Come look at my stuff. Heller says we are in common use. We are covered.
Binaries are stupid, Dan. Jay. Everybody. I think binary triggers.
How many binary triggers have killed anybody? You know what I mean?
I'm ordering one right after this show.
I'm never going to own one or pull one.
I agree with you, Kevin. I'll never own a binary trigger. And those who do, more power to you. I just nobody's ever killed anybody with a binary trigger. Why are we trying to limit that stuff?
Just because no one's ever killed anybody with something doesn't mean that you shouldn't.
Even if they have, why would we try to limit it? It's not the tool that we need to ban.
There are 19 times more deaths by knife in America than by guns.
If you kill somebody with a gun, guys, if you kill somebody with a gun, you're gonna spend the rest of your life in jail or you're gonna die. End of story.
Okay. So the sorry, I flipped on that.
And the stat I believe on the knife thing is that's more than rifles, not more than guns in general.
Okay, yeah, so right. 19 times more than a rifle that committed this last murder.
Yes.
19 times more, but I don't hear any bans on butter knives or Bowie knives anywhere.
Cars kill more people a year.
You never will.
That's right.
Yeah.
Nope.
The never will. Blamed for crime. And there's a reason for that. That is a strategic choice by the anti-gun people. And we've let them be successful in that. That's why you talk about gun violence all the time. That's just a way to turn people's opinion against guns.
Says basically, Rick Scott said, I'm going to take time, going to read the bill, and I'm going to talk to families. So we all know what that means. Switching gears, because there you go. I mean, all that stuff's coming, and it's going to be debated, and it's going to be continue to be debated. And it sounds to me like Florida is the next state that all these companies are going to have to take off of their shipping lists and no longer ship product to and all that stuff.
So I got to ask you a question, Kevin, as a Floridian, and everybody on the on the panel that's a Floridian. Give me your rundown. How do you feel about it? I mean, overall, honest opinion, lay it out. How do you feel about the gun laws that are coming down in your state, which until 3 weeks ago was one of the most liberal gun law or gun states in the country?
I don't own any bump fires. I don't think they can enforce anything that's rate increasing. I'm already 21. And if certain teachers had been armed and certain school members had been armed, I feel like they could have made a difference. So if they're going to go through the process, just like someone who gets their CCW or whatever, I support that. I don't think it'll be some crazy thing where a bunch of, teachers are now vulnerable because they have this, that, or the other. And quite honestly, there are already teachers with guns in other schools. We've had this conversation, both known and unknown.
I'm not happy about the age change, and I'm not happy about the rate increasing device thing. I think the rate increasing device thing is unenforceable. The 21 thing I think will eventually get rolled back. So I'm not happy about it, but I'm not freaking out about it. I'm not as ambivalent that I'm over 21, so it doesn't really bother me, because there are 18-year-olds that need the right to defend themselves, and I think that's bullshit that they're having that pulled away from them. So whatever.
I came from a state that didn't support ARs for 21-year-olds, sub 21-year-olds. So yeah, I don't have strong feelings about this. I feel like this actually, quite honestly, is not a bad thing. So,
all right.
I think it's I don't know. I think it's an acceptable trade to let teachers carry, because I think the rest of the stuff will eventually be rolled back, because Florida has been such a pro-gun state in the past. I think we'll eventually get rolled back.
Interesting. Googler.
My opinion's a little different, because I moved from New York to Florida because they passed the SAFE Act, and they're like, register your gun or you're now breaking the law and we're going to come after you, and it's going to be a big freaking deal. So I don't know how I necessarily feel about this. We definitely needed to do something about it, but it's a slippery slope. And with the whole mental health thing that they're trying to fit in there, who gets to decide who's mentally fit and who's not? We had a conversation about that in the pre-show. You get into this situation where they're like, oh, well, you tick these 3 check boxes, so you're not mentally fit to own a gun. But that person's owned firearms for 15 years and they've never had any issue.
It's almost as if it opens the door for social justice, isn't it?
Well, the other thing that's in there that we didn't talk about yet is the fact that you can report people, and there's a whole series of steps that can be taken, that if the reporting officer feels that you are mentally unstable and inconsistent with the complaint, at that point they can take your guns away from you, which they've started to do.
Don't even get me started on that. That's a whole other show.
Yep, it truly is. So there's a guy that was forced to surrender his gun in Seattle. He was accused by neighbors of intimidating people, staring them down with a gun holstered on his person. A neighbor who knew the suspect alleged the man was, quote, roaming the hallways with his .25 caliber, which scared some people. So that's in Seattle.
Did he ever draw his weapon, or he was just walking around with it in a holster?
Walking around.
He was basically open carrying. He's open carrying, basically.
Let's put it this way. If people are scared of you because of your gun or your holster, you're probably doing something wrong.
Well, let me wrap this up too, this way. And I should have probably jumped here before I went the other way. I'm getting tired. Sorry. It's been a long week. The notion of the march on the 24th which not many people are talking about in terms of what it is. In my opinion, you're talking about being 2 weeks away from what'll end up being remembered as the biggest anti-gun march nationwide in the history of this country. This isn't about school safety and arming teachers and getting walls built around schools and better checkpoints and mental health. This march, this never again thing, is a complete anti-gun rally. So my question for the panel is, if the kids were pissed and the parents were pissed and their whole thing was, let's go make some change and let's go make some change, and Scott signs this thing, 21 teachers, bump stocks, all the other stuff that we just talked about, what are they fighting for necessarily with their march at that point is my question.
They're fighting to be seen. And let's not forget also, and I said this on your show before, I respect the fact that these kids have the courage to go and stand up for what they feel is right. But let's make no mistake about it. They're being exploited by their parents. And you said it before, they're well-funded, but they're also not well-funded by their parents. They're well-funded by a lot of political agencies and celebrities throwing a lot of money in their face to exploit these kids in front of a camera. Let's make that first and foremost.
I want to make sure that everyone out there knows that the group of kids that have been selected for this do not represent all of the kids of this school. As a matter of fact, many of them are starting to show signs of resentment and everything because their voices were never heard. And the chance of that happening at this point is never, because the media darlings have been selected. The people that are going to speak have already been identified. And like you said, there's some moving going on. There's definitely some handling that's going on. But when you talk about the type of thing that's going to go on, not only there, but here in Parkland on that day, and around the country, apparently there's hundreds of locations now that have jumped in on this thing. You're talking about a pretty big rally that's going to take a lot of those people that are in the middle that I talk about, and it's going to sway their opinions. Some of them, for sure.
I don't think it's anybody's opinion.
You don't think the kids in wheelchairs up there talking about their school getting shot up is going to sway somebody that's in the middle?
Yeah, I think it'll sway those swinging that way anyway. That's because
I saw them. I got to watch one of the girls get wheeled in just the other day, and I held the door open for her or her mom, and I looked at their faces, and I guarantee you it's going to sway some people.
Oh, dude, it's a hard emotional road, man. Of course it is. And there's nothing we can do to stop that. The harder we push, the more we swing people that way. That's the problem with our cause. Well,
again, I don't think the cause of making the schools safer for the kids, implementing several different layers of different things is I don't think anyone's against that. But my point is, this small thing that we're all saying that we're kind of against, that we're against in terms of encroaching on the general rights of an average American to defend themselves as a result of this event, this is going to be the biggest cry of all so far.
Well, part of the problem, and it's a whole other show and a whole topic you could spend hours on. But part of the problem is just like the bill we talked about. It's not. Everything should be done, I think, on a line item basis. Forget this writing a bill and it having 15 different components that affect 25 different aspects of your life. You're talking about regulating firearm parts in that bill. You're talking about securing schools, which nobody disagrees with that. Then you're talking about mental health. You've got multiple issues there that need time and devotion to get them right, if that's what we're going to do. Not just throw everything into one big bill and pass it.
I've talked to you privately, Kevin, about this. I work in downtown Orlando. It's not a bastion of conservatism by any means. I've heard just random conversations, more pro-gun conversations than anti-gun. People are tired of the kids being paraded around. It's so obvious now that that's what they're being used for. I don't know how much of an impact this is really going to have.
All right, I'll take that point too, but I'm talking about the new kids that you haven't seen yet. There's 17 survivors that have been shot multiple times and lived through this thing. And you haven't seen those kids yet.
Well, I have, but some people haven't. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying.
If this is the propaganda event that we think it is, because again, I have no problem with kids protesting as well, and God bless them because they have a cause, and I get it. They want some change because they don't want to see their friends shot, and they don't feel like anybody else in the world ever should as well. They put all their eggs in one basket, and I think obviously it would be, you all know me, I think that's not the way to go. At the same time, they're making waves, and they have a lot of support, and to think it's going to be a non-event, my opinion, I don't think it's going to be a non-event by any means. I do agree with you, Brian. And I think that the 15 minutes is almost up for a few of them. And we'll see.
I don't think there's room for the public opinion to have the 15 minutes be up for some and then have new ones cycled in. And then
They're the real
in
story.
reality, that's a
They're the
beautiful
real
idea,
stories.
but you know
Time out.
that's not reality.
Time out. They're the real story. In my opinion, the kids that you've seen on TV, the event happened, the camera showed up, they started filming a bunch of people. They said, he's good, she's good, he's good, she's good. Boom. There was no, you know what I'm saying? And they either ran with it or they said, I'm out. And most of them ran with it, it looks like.
And please don't take this, Kevin, because I know that you're specifically involved in this whole thing. So don't take this as being insensitive. And I think you and I will probably agree, kids in this particular situation, in this particular state, are going to be used and exploited for as long as need be, regardless of which ones it is. It's going to be different ones, but until the people that want change, not necessarily these kids, but the people that want change in the state of Florida, until they get their way, they will continue to exploit these high school kids until that is done. That's just the way the world is.
I don't think it's a winning prospect for those that want gun control, though. That's all I'm saying.
I don't think it is, but I agree with you. I don't think it is either. But it's going to continue to happen. They're going to put enough pressure on there until someone folds, and even including up in a new governor election. You know, I promise you, it's not going to end until there's a Democrat put into office in Florida as governor, and he's going to sign off on whatever needs to be signed off. And that's unfortunate. I don't live in Florida, so I can't say that, but it sounds like the politics of it sound like it's not going away anytime soon. That's just my opinion. I don't know, though.
Interesting. Right on. Appreciate the input, dude. The other thing, what else? See, I think we hit all that. We do have a school shooting to report that happened, looks like today. Student shoots classmate while showing off gun, then shoots himself, putting it back in his pants. This was a student brought a gun to school, end of the day, showed the gun to one of his classmates. As he showed it off, he fired the gun by accident. Huffman High School, Birmingham, Alabama. The woman killed was 17 years old. The shooter's in critical condition. He shot himself as he was attempting to put the gun in the waistband. It sounds like they may have had a relationship. He was a football player. She was the girlfriend. And he's been released from the hospital at 7:30 on Wednesday night. This just happened.
Well, you can't fix stupid sometimes.
Well, and kids, I hate to say this, but Kevin, do we know anybody who might have taken guns into school when they were younger than they should have been?
I don't know anything. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't. Yeah, I'm sure you know nothing about nothing. But kids will be kids, and shit like this is going to happen. Thank God no one was seriously hurt, huh?
Yeah. So how does that make sense? So the other thing that happened this week was another woman cut her gun in half. This one's interesting because her name is Karen Mallard, and she's running for Congress. And she feels like there should be a full ban on everything, universal background checks, 7-day mandatory waiting purchase on everything. And she did one of these moves where we've seen it before, And I have an update article that the ATF is investigating her because she basically
broke a
went
federal law.
online. Yeah, she broke the law by.
So is
online.
that law that she made it a short-barreled rifle?
In essence, she
I love it.
That's awesome.
Ignorance.
She took a saw.
Karma.
Yeah, here she is. She took a saw and talks about Moms Demand Action and how she's going to, be a part of it and this and that and the other. And then she takes a saw and cuts the end of the barrel off.
The only thing that's going to save her is that she turned it over to the cops.
Did she? Did she turn it over?
Yeah,
okay.
The police department confirmed that it's in their possession.
She starts this video by, "Oh, I'm such a gun nut, and I grew up hunting, and we use guns all the time, and yada yada yada." And then she proceeds to make her rifle a short-barreled rifle with no clue whatsoever.
Yep. Let me wrap this up tonight by giving you the other side, which is, again, back to the defensive schools and the challenges that we're going to find there in terms of beefing them up, getting people on the same page in terms of fighting versus, again, the lockdown syndrome, as I call it. Here's Ryan Hoover from Aperture and Funker Tactical in a couple videos to talk about this.
And so we kind of made it our mission to get information out there. Unfortunately, most school systems, especially most public school systems, want no part of dialogue and training teachers to deal with these things beyond turn off the lights, lock the door, put everybody in a corner. And that works awesome until he comes through that door. And then it's maybe the worst thing ever. So we've been going to the individual teachers. We've been going to parents. We've been going to just the general public, offering these seminars, these workshops. If anybody works in the school system, they can come and do this workshop for free, this seminar for free. They're always free to school system employees. I don't care if you're a janitor in the school or if you're the principal in the school. If you work in a school building, you can do this workshop for free. It's always been that way. It's been that way since we've been doing this for 6 years.
And that was a couple years ago. And then the other one I wanted to show you was this one, which was some people who actually went through one of the seminars.
Being a citizen in the state of the world as it's in, these seem like skills that they're critical to literally our survival these days. Every time I think about how he's mentioned that we are the first responders, it gives me goosebumps to know that it's true, because it takes a matter of minutes to have, policemen, firefighters, whoever, responders to actually arrive. So that really hit home with me.
The energy was great and the information was all useful, and just nice knowing that there's something I can do besides nothing.
We're so conditioned through movies and people who aren't around firearms to think that, well, as soon as someone has a firearm and you don't, then you've got no options, you're toast. And this really negates that philosophy. It really shows you do have options. Me being very petite, was intimidated, thinking there's no way I could take a 6-foot intruder down. I'm quite confident now. I think knowing the moves, I can do it.
There you go. You can check that out. And woo. Let me flip it around and wrap things up on Facebook.
I'm Karen Mallon.
Whoops. There's our girl. She came back up.
Surrounded by guns.
Anyway, we'll wrap it up this way. Ross, appreciate it tonight, dude.
Dude, it's always a pleasure, man. I'm absolutely grateful to get a platform to share my opinion, man. And I hope I don't offend anybody directly, but I really enjoy it, man.
Just
love the whole thing.
Yeah, appreciate it, Brian. Thanks, dude.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Devil's Advocate, aka Clint. Appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime. I'm always here.
I hope you win this weekend. Just for the record, I'm rooting for you.
Win.
It'd be fun to see how it goes. Clover, thanks, brother.
Always a pleasure.
You got a chat coming up tonight?
Yeah, we'll do the nerd chat here probably in about 20 minutes.
There you go. If you're a nerd, go check out Clovertech's channel. Ghost, appreciate it, dude.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I just want to say I enjoyed the conversation on everybody, and I love the devil's advocate side. More of this needs to happen because these are the true issues that need to be discussed. So thanks for having me.
We need to have these conversations. Googler, thanks, brother.
No problem, man. Glad to be here.
You got it. Casey, thanks again, dude.
Yeah, man, good stuff.
Right on. Thanks, everybody, for watching. If you liked it, share it. If you want to sub, go sub those other guys. You can sub me too, but go sub those other guys. Make sure you do. Thanks to Frank and everybody that supported us along the way. You can help yourself and hook up now. Go over on the Funker Tactical. Check out the gear there. Check out some of the patches you can get. Those patches are going to be gone soon. We got new colors coming up in very shortly, actually. That's all I got. You got anything? Woot woot. Woot woot from the little one. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll talk to y'all soon. Till then, peace.